Text today, Isaiah chapter 55. What's your Rsvp? What's your Rsvp? Isaiah 55, prophet Isaiah from the Old Testament says, "Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink, even if you have no money. Come, take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Why spend your money on food that does not give you strength? Why pay for food that does you no good? Listen to me, and you will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Seek the Lord while you can find him. Call on him now while he is near. Let the wicked change their ways and banish the very thought of doing wrong. Let them turn to the Lord that he may have mercy on them. Yes, turn to our God, for he will forgive generously. My thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord. And my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts." Just before Charles Schulz passed away, he made one last television special for the cartoon characters, the Peanuts. I think it was it was my best birthday ever, Charlie Brown. It was not a very popular one, I don't think. It never really went very far in terms of popularity, but certainly I watched it, and my kids watched it as well. I think it was back in the late 90s it came out. Well, at one point in the show, it was about a birthday party, Linus's birthday party, and Linus was sending out invitations to his party, and he sent one to Sally Brown, Charlie's little sister Sally. And she got the invitation, and you know Sally, she's kind of like, well, she doesn't really understand a lot of things sometimes. And she's reading through the invitation, and she asked her big brother Charlie, she said, "What is Rsvp?" And she's reading the invitation, "What is Rsvp?" And of course, Charlie, being the good big brother that he is, or was, he said, well, it means répondez s'il vous plaît, which means respond, please. It's the invitation, the inviter is asking for your response to know whether you're coming or not. And she didn't really get that. She got hung up on the word Rsvp because she didn't understand it's RSVP, but Rsvp was what she said. So she's so entranced by this Rsvp that she goes immediately over to call up Linus on the phone to respond to the invitation. And so she calls up Linus on the phone, and Linus on the other line, you can see in the other line, "Hello," and all she said was Rsvp. That's it. She hung up the phone. Like Rsvp. Simple things like that. Lent, we're getting deep into the season of Lent, and Lent is an invitation to a banquet. It's an invitation to a celebration, a party, really. The question is, though, how will we respond? For the past 2 years, it's been rather challenging to throw parties, especially during the heart of the pandemic that we went through. Leaders were saying, stay in place and wear masks and don't gather together in groups more than whatever it used to be. Remember those days? 10, it was like 10, or, those are bad days, tough days to get through. And so it was hard to throw a party. But we're Americans, and we find a way to do things like that, right? So we as a congregation, we had our parking lot barbecues. Remember those? Those were so fun. Sitting out there in the parking lot, some people had camp chairs, some people brought their little camp tables. Somebody actually brought a little bistro set, I think. I remember seeing that out there. We were fancy having our barbecue parties in the parking lot here because, we were not going to stop what we needed to do to live life, and that's a great way to be. But those kinds of events, those informal parties, parking lot barbecues, they don't really call for formal invitations to be sent out. You throw an email out, or you put it on a Facebook invite, or you mention it during Sunday service. And for those casual kinds of get-togethers, but for anything that rises above the level of burgers in a parking lot, or eating on camp chairs, or sitting. Somebody had a pickup truck. They were hanging out in the back of the pickup truck eating burgers. I think it was Darren. Darren had this pickup truck, and Beth and Isla were out there tailgating in our parking lot. It was great. But for anything more than that, invitations of a more formal nature may be required. And remember the olden days of invitations? What our children would call ancient history, like it's in textbooks now. Formal invitations. Remember these formal invitations? They were sent off to an engraver. Engravers, do they still exist? Engravers would do calligraphy on invitations, and cards would be hand delivered to people, or they were sent through this thing that used to be called the U.S. Postal Service. Remember that? Yeah, the U.S. Postal Service. It was this service that used to deliver like cards and invitations to us. Now there's something that just delivers junk mail to me. They have a huge business now in package delivery, which is great for the Postal Service. But they used to deliver like cards and stuff. Now you get a card in the mail. It's like, I got a card. It's real. I can't believe this. I got a real card. Whoa. Now it's just, like junk mail, credit card offer, credit card offer, credit card offer. Oh, boy. We don't do that anymore. Today we send electronic or digital invitations, to our graduation parties or our wedding ceremonies or our bridal and baby showers, birthdays, quinceanera, whatever you got going on, sorority soirees. We're going to send an email or Facebook kind of invitation, housewarming parties, fancy dinner parties. It's gonna be electronically delivered. We even put our invitations to like community lunches and our food for thought suppers. We put on Facebook as an event with the ability to RSVP. We send them around via mass emails and even text messages. This is how we do it now. I mean, you could do it the traditional way, couldn't you? I mean, you still could. I mean, it's expensive and labor intensive. You got to lick envelopes and difficult to collect all these RSVPs, and who knows what people's addresses are nowadays. And it might take a while for the invitation to get through the postal service, and the invitation could be lost, or it could be set aside on the invitee's stack of junk mail, and that's not good. Well, online invitations, minimize or solve these kinds of problems, and unless, of course, the email gets lost in your junk mail folder too, which is possible. Speaking of junk mail, real mail, you get so much of it, it's just almost like automatic. You're throwing it away, and I'm throwing things away, and I throw it all in the trash, all this junk mail. I'm like, well, maybe I ought to check that one. That one, it looks just like junk. I open it up as an $1,800 check. I'm like, whoa, boy, I guess I better be a little more cautious here what I consider to be junk mail. What about God? I was going to bring this back to God here today. Does he have such a problem when sending out invitations? Does God's invitation reach those that are invited? Do the invitations get lost in transmission? Here's an invitation right here. It starts in verse 1. Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink, even if you've got nothing. Come and take your choice of wine and milk. It's all free. Why spend your money on food that doesn't give you strength? Why pay for food that does no good? Listen to me, and you will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Come, enjoy. It sounds like an invitation to a feast. It's some sort of a festival, at least, or a party. And if it sounded familiar to the ears of Isaiah's readers here, it's only because it was familiar to them. In those days, recently crowned kings would celebrate their ascensions to the throne by throwing these massive kingdom-wide parties. It would be a banquet. Everywhere would be a banquet in towns and villages and hamlets. Food was everywhere. Wine flowed freely because it was time to celebrate the new king. It was all designed to signal the dawning of a new day under the beneficent reign of a new king. It was time to celebrate every Everyone was invited. Remember the old Billy Joel song he sang? Billy Joel said he'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. Remember that song, that Billy Joel? I can't remember the name of it. Only the good die young. That's what it was. And he said the sinners are much more fun. This is what Billy Joel said. Doesn't want to hang around the saints because they're boring and dreary, apparently. Well, I think Billy Joel sang that song. I don't know. I've never talked to him about it. But I think he sang that song because I think some of the saints, or maybe a lot of the saints, have lost the invitations to the party. I don't know, maybe got lost in junk mail. Maybe we misplaced the invitation to the party. Or maybe we just thought it was junk mail, this invitation coming from God. And we're still waiting around for the invite to show up, and we're waiting in solemnity and drudgery and dreariness. And we've got to be all we've got to be religious. We've got to be religious if you're going to follow God and be serious. And this is serious stuff here that you need to be contrite and just lowly. No, this is a celebration. What we have, what our faith is a celebration. It's a dawning of a new day. There is a new king. And that king is Jesus Christ. It's time to celebrate. Here it is. This is the invitation that we've been waiting for. It was written way back in the Old Testament through Isaiah. Verse 6, seek the Lord while you can find him. Call on him while he is near. Choice wines and the finest foods are happening now. Find that invitation. That's our charge. Find it. It's there. Rsvp, Rsvp, the invitation. Make your response to God. God sent out that invitation. Well, where is the invitation? That's your question. If I don't have that invitation, where is the invitation? If I'm not sure where that is, or where God's invited me, or where that is in my life, where should I look? Well, the season of Lent is an invitation. This whole season that we're in right now, this Easter season, is the invitation. The real question is, what will your Rsvp say when you respond? Every year the invite comes. Every year we celebrate Lent. Every year the invitation is here, but do we show up to the party? Do we even bother to Rsvp at all? Well, let's first do that. Let's Rsvp to Lent's invitation. Let's all do that. Let's write our response back to God on that little card in our hearts. Well, what do we write? Well, let's look at the traditional Rsvps are what? Okay, joyfully accepts. This one, right? Regretfully declines. There's the other one, and there's kind of a third one. Not sure. I mean, that's like some of our modern invitations, like online. You might be interested. Do you ever see that one? Well, it's not sure, really. We'll call it not sure today. And so Lent is here. We've all established that. This is Lent. So the invitation has arrived. It's yours, the invitation. What's your Rsvp? So let's look at these individual Rsvps here. So first of all, joyfully accepts. The prophet Isaiah in our text today is joyful and excited. He has no doubt already sent his Rsvp right away by choosing the joyfully accepts option. Checked it off, circled it all around, crossed out the other ones, and sent it back. Free food, why not? Listen to me and you'll eat what's good. You'll enjoy the finest food. If something is offered to you and you don't need money and there's no price tag, it's free, right? That's true. And this what Isaiah is talking about, this banquet here, this food that he's talking about here, it's not like the Golden Corral. Did you ever go to the Golden Corral? Oh, that's nearly free food, and you get what you pay for. Or, sorry, the new Hong Kong buffet up there in Belmont. That's why I like the green ginger. But anyway, it's this, what Isaiah is talking about here, is a banquet like you've never seen. Why would you not want to accept this offer? And he goes on, come take your choice of wine or milk, it's all free. It's not, listen to me, it's not box wine, okay? Get that out of your minds. What's being offered here is not box wine at all. It's not even the bottles of wine with the screw cap. You know those because if it's got a screw cap on it, it's like, well, that's kind of an iffy kind of a bottle of wine. It's like the bottles with the real corks in them. Not even the synthetic cork. It's got a real cork in it. It's not some small thing that's being offered. Again, what's not to like about this party? What's not to like about this celebration and this guaranteed entrance? To get into this party, all you have to do is show up at the door. You're invited. You don't have to feel like some freeloader picking off some other party's buffet or swooping into somebody else's open bar. I don't know who they are, but I'm just going to show up here. This is for you. This is for us. We're invited. Come, it says in the text. It's used 4 times. The word come is used 4 times in the first 3 verses of this text. And if you answer God's call, accepting the divine invitation, you're not going to be turned away. Lent, what we're in here is an invitation to a celebration, but you've got to go to be part of it. You've got to respond, and you've got to accept the invitation, and you've got to go, which leads us to the next RSVP response. You get joyfully accepts, and then the second one is regretfully declines. There's a lot of reasons why we decline God's invitation. And, they're important reasons. And, it could be like, well, right now it's not the right time. I understand that God is there, and I understand maybe that there's something to that, and I sense something there, but I'm not ready for that right now. Right now is not convenient, maybe. Or it sounds like the invitation of a lifetime, but it's coming at a really bad time. And I've got so many other things to deal with right now. I can't be thinking about, what God has or what to do for God. Or I'll have to take a rain check, God, because I'm sorry, but I just don't really feel like the invitation's for me. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Do you really know me, God? Do you really know? You're sending me an invitation, God, maybe, but do you really know who you're sending the invitation to? You know what I've done? You know what I haven't done? I don't know. Other engagements, really? Where are other engagements that we would have that we would have to decline? The festival that God established. The party that Jesus started. Jesus started the party with the empty tomb. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. In John chapter 1, it says, we don't have it written down, but John chapter 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The celebration is eternal, from beginning to end, from everlasting to everlasting. It's not something that you schedule into your week. It's not something we have to okay, now we have to take time to do this or carve time out to respond to the invitation or go to the celebration. The party is more like a state of being. It's celebrated, the celebration, it's celebrated with everything of life. You see this celebration in the smile of a baby. Can you see that? You see it and you feel it in the sunlight on a spring day like this afternoon. You feel that celebration that God has. You look out and you sense the birds singing. And you're like, yes, I hear that. I hear you, God. I hear what you're saying to me. Yes, there is a celebration even in the midst of the end of a pandemic and this global crisis. There is still a celebration right in the middle of this. And you feel it and see it in about 1 trillion other ways. Let's be honest, so many of us have our heads down like this, and we're trudging through our tasks in this world, or just trudging through to the end, and our minds are fixated on our problems, and we miss the banquet celebration within those tasks. We miss the celebration in amongst our tasks of life, and see, the celebration is within our problems. We think we got to settle our problems first, and then we can celebrate. Settle our challenges and our difficulties first, and then we can respond to God's invitation. No, God's saying, no, come where you are. Come while you're in your problems. Come while you have those challenges in life. Come in the midst of your world and celebrate now. Here, even with these problems still happening. Come and celebrate. After all, we don't live the Christian life on Sunday mornings from 9:30 to 10:30 and that's it, right? By the way, you have 10 more minutes to live the Christian life if that's true. Just 10 more minutes if I get you out of here on time. No, that's silly. When do you live the Christian life? When do you stop living the Christian life, right? The celebration is all week, all month, all year. In the season of Lent, the celebration never ends. A recent 5-year study called the Obstacles of Growth survey. It was based on data gathered from the responses of more than 20,000 people worldwide who identified as Christians. And the study revealed that, shocking, not really, but the study revealed that on average, more than 4 in 10 Christians around the world say they often or always rush from task to task, and they also said it is often or always true that the busyness of life gets in the way of developing a relationship with God. Sometimes you could have nothing to do and still be so busy with the tasks of just trying to live in life, or trying to manage your thoughts, or trying to figure out what your life is going to be doing this next day, and the thoughts of anxiety or maybe even depression can be so overwhelming. So what we do is we wind up sending our Rsvp with regrets. Sounds like fun, but I'm way too busy. We miss the celebration. Verse 6. Seek the Lord while you can find him. Call on him when? Now, while he is near. Let the wicked change their ways and banish the very thought of doing wrong. Let them turn to the Lord that he may have mercy on them. Yes, turn to our God, for he will forgive generously. The business of life that we get so wrapped up in doesn't or shouldn't get in the way of our relationship with God, because it's in the business of life. That's where our relationship happens with God. That's where God wants to be in our lives. Right in the depths of whatever is going on in your life. That's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to live. That's where he wants to celebrate with you. Our busyness or whatever else it is, it just becomes the reason, or other reasons too, why we send our regrets. We are the ones who get in the way of our relationship to God. We do so by regretfully declining. These are the best foods and drinks of life, and I'm not talking about real food and drink, obviously. This is food for your spirit. This is the stuff that makes your soul burn brightly in this world. The celebration will come to you right where you are. Don't decline. It's funny, I was reading through this, some material, funny Rsvp cards for this sermon today. And a wedding invitation. How many people like to go to weddings? Yeah. My hand is down. Sorry. But a wedding Rsvp card, it had 4 options on it for responding. Number one, enthusiastically attending the wedding, right? Number two was regretfully declining the wedding. But then the third one was this, regretfully attending the wedding. And the fourth one, enthusiastically declining the wedding, right? Whew. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, the third option for RSVPs is not sure. Again, verse 6. Seek the Lord while you can find him. Call on him while he is near. You know, some of us like this idea a lot about God and the presence of Jesus in our lives. We like it a lot, but we're not sure. You know, we're saying to God, let me think about it for a while. Or we say, maybe. You know, whether or not we accept his invitation, you know, it's based on things in our lives. And yeah, we're in the middle of things right now, but I'm getting clarity and I'm hearing you, God. And I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not sure. You know, it's normal to be cautious when making commitments or accepting invitations. Whatever we RSVP to God, we want to honor it, particularly if we eventually accept that invitation. Choosing to RSVP God by checking not sure is not necessarily a bad thing. You're not declining. You're saying, I want to. It's interesting. I know there's something there, but I'm not quite sure how to get there yet. Successful entrepreneur and philanthropist Bob Buford, he wrote a book called Halftime, Changing Your Game Plan from Success to Significance. And of course, it's like a midlife book. And he said that for the second half of life, for the second half of your life to be better than the first half of your life, you must make the choice to step outside of the safety of living on autopilot. You know that autopilot that we get into? You must wrestle, he said, with who you are, why you believe what you profess to believe about your life, and what you do to provide meaning and structure to your daily activities and relationships. Many of us struggle to define what's important in our lives. We're not sure. And this is what's so great about Lent. It's a time to find out. And it's a perfect time to find out. Jesus said, you know, seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all the things of life then will be added to you as well. In other words, God is the one thing in that box, and everything else will fall into place. God is that meaning. And God, not just alone, God is that person that adds meaning to everything in our world. So how should we respond to the RSVP? And I want to encourage you, give yourselves permission to enjoy the party. And this isn't about joining a church or following some religion. This is about living the most meaningful life that you could live with Jesus Christ in the center of it. If you choose to see it, life is a celebration banquet. It's a celebration of the empty tomb where Jesus was. But the key is, if you choose to see it. I was talking with a guy just a little while back, and he was talking, and he was upset, and you could see how upset he was. And he said, you know, 2-year pandemic, millions have died, the world turned over, and now, towards the end of it, now we have this stuff, this useless war in the Ukraine, and you could see tears in his eyes. He was upset. And he said, what's the point of all this? What is the point of all this? And I said something like, I can't give you all those answers. I don't know. But what I can say is that there was an empty tomb. And there is a celebration right now. You are invited. You are invited. We are all invited. The question then becomes, what will our RSVP be? Let's turn our eyes upon Jesus today. Please stand with me for our final hymn.